Hey folks, CLG here. So here's another thing that's interesting to me. During the Vietnam War, I don't know why, but I'm just wondering what did the ham radio guys do back then? Here is, I can't pronounce his name. 50 years ago, he's in Vietnam, and this is in his bunker somewhere in Vietnam. He's running a Collins S line, I believe. Look at that station, man. I don't know, I can't remember. I think that's the amplifier, that's the transceiver. Maybe that's a speaker. I don't know Collins gear that well, but yeah. Talking home on a ham radio from Vietnam back in the 60s. Here's another Vietnam picture from 1969. Looks like he's running a really cool classic Collins. That looks like an S line with the amplifier, the 30L1, I think. Yeah, some cool equipment, man. More Collins equipment. Look at this dude's ham shack. Holy shit. That's some serious radio equipment there. Somewhere in Vietnam. I don't think this is Vietnam. Could be. Let's see. But this is the way some of the ham shacks used to look. Just tons of gear and big, giant, high voltage receivers and transmitters. This is beautiful. Man, I'm not sure what that radio is in the center, but I would be just completely in heaven if I was sitting in front of all this crap. Here's N6 Charlie Charlie. I don't know what the hell this gear is. God, look at this stuff, man. Wow. It just looks so cool. I don't know how efficient this equipment was, but for sure there's got to be at least a kilowatt of transmitting power of this station, if it is an HF station. Here's another ham shack in 1970. Looks like it's one of those, what do you call those buildings with just a curved roof on it?
CLG, that's called a Quonset hut? Jeez, get it straight, would you?
I can't remember what the name of this is, but that amp is hard to find. They're still brilliant radios to this day. But he's running all Collins. Everything's Collins, man. I'm pretty sure Mars is military amateur radio service. I was gonna get a Mars call sign one. I think I did to have that one time, but once again, 1970, he's running all Collins gear. Dad, Collins? That's all I'm seeing here is Collins. Where's the Heathkits? Not exactly sure. This must be older. I wonder if this is older Collins transmitter and receiver setup with an amplifier, which I believe is there. I don't know what kind of gear this is, but it's got the big old wooden desk. That's what I used to have back when I first started out. Maybe that's what I need to get again. Big giant wooden desk and a bunch of Collins equipment. Good God. I can see why Collins is still the creme de la creme of that era. It's still like chased down equipment. And of course on the other side, the side we were fighting against, their radio equipment looks really junky. This must be some kind of a Chinese, I would think, radio system. He sent in Morse code, so Morse code was pretty alive and well during the Vietnam War, of course. Another photo of a Marine in Vietnam. More Collins gear. It's all Collins, man. Daddy, why won't you play with me? Not now. I gotta get on the ham radio. What the hell? And here it is. Looks like a Helicrafters SX100. Maybe it's a 99. I think it's a 100. And a Heathkit DX100. I had that. I have that. Good for me, right? This dude looks like Fidel Castro. Maybe it is him. I don't know. But that looks like a Collins transmitter. I don't think they had transceivers back then, but I could be wrong. Yes, Hammarlund also, I guess, was popular back in the 70s. Probably some guys had some Hammarlund gear. Maybe some Mars stations in Vietnam also ran a few of these babies. I'm not quite sure which one this is. I can't really see. I'm not sure what it is. It's one of the early HQs, I think. I mean, I just think it's interesting to look at the type of radio gear that was being used back in those, in those years in the '60s, especially in Vietnam. There were ham radio operators who were soldiers in the field, and the ones that were operating, that must have been. I know it's a Vietnam War, and let's not forget the war and what was going on. For God's sake, it was absolute hell for some people over there. But I have an interest in amateur radio, or just radio from that era, because I think from what I've seen and kind of read, some of the radios, the tube radios, Collins, were probably at their finest quality and engineered to the max in those years, and that's kind of where I start with my interest in radio equipment from the '60s up and through the '80s. But very interesting. Also, I would imagine that the airwaves over here in the United States, over there, all over the world were really jam-packed full of more operators than now, but there's a lot of people on the air now as well, so maybe that's wrong too, I don't know. And here's another organization that I think I got my Mars call sign back then. So Mars is the Military Auxiliary Radio System, and it was basically an amateur radio network of operators that had the Mars credentials to transmit and receive on different frequencies, military HF frequencies, I guess for the reason of just helping out with communications, and probably during the war, Vietnam War, I don't know about World War II, but helping do phone patches for servicemen and women overseas, and doing phone patches across the world back to home so they could talk to their loved ones. If you don't know what a phone patch is, back before cell phones, and when long distance was extremely expensive and you couldn't make overseas calls, ham radio operators in those countries, they had a box called a phone patch. It was a little box with equipment, circuitry, that they would connect this box right to their ham radios. So somebody could call them on the phone. I'm going to patch you through, and they could patch the person's audio signal right into their transmitter, and then he could transmit, and they could broadcast it all the way back, thousands of miles back to home or whatever. And some ham radio operator on that side of the world would have somebody call them, and he would be running a phone patch so they could talk back to their loved one in Vietnam or wherever they were. So most older ham radio operators know what that is, but that's how we used to do communications and pass messages via phone patches and our radio equipment. Wow. So anyway, folks, that's just another interest of mine. I don't know about the Korean War, but just radio communications during the '60s, Vietnam. I might go back to Korea, but that equipment before the '60s, in my opinion, it was good, but I really think like the best radio gear you could buy of the tube type was during this time, the mid to late '60s. 73, thanks for watching another one of my goofy videos, and until another day comes, 73.